Hey guys, welcome to the channel. It's Carolyn. I'm a tarot reader, empath, and psychic for those of you who are new here. And on the channel, I do tarot related videos such as pick-a-pile readings, collective readings, and other educational videos all about tarot and things related to it. And so today's video is going to be a little bit different than what you typically see on the channel. I'm going to be doing a reaction video. And so today I'm going to be reacting to a video called Top 10 Tarot Cards You Never Want to See.
Hello and welcome back to the most amazing channel on the internet. I'm your host Rebecca Felgate, and today we're talking about the top 10 scariest tarot cards you do not want to see. Fun fact, my friend Phoebe did my reading for the year and 3 of the cards on this list cropped up for me. But I will say before we launch into this, with tarots there are a number of different meanings that could be interpreted for each and every card. So if any of these cards are pulled for you, don't panic. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing for you. The cards work for you.
So I'm really glad that they put this disclaimer in there because it's so true. The cards have so many different meanings, and especially with all the cards you pull at once, all the cards are going to influence one another, and that's going to change the meaning and the message for the person. So even if you pull a scary looking card, it's not going to be as scary once you pull other cards to help clarify the message.
Alright, let's start off with the one that everyone is most afraid of, shall we? Coming in at number 10, we have Death.
So of course they had to have the Death card somewhere on this list because that's typically the one that comes to everyone's mind. Even if you don't know anything about tarot, everyone's always afraid of the Death card because people think it means literal death when that is rarely the case. Typically it doesn't even mean a loss to me. When I pick it up in readings, it means that there's change and that there is a rebirth happening, that there's some sort of transformation.
Yeah, okay, so the Death Tarot is dramatic and it usually symbolizes something pretty big, but it doesn't actually necessarily depict literal death. Visually, the Death card is part of the Major Arcana group and it is pretty striking and a very, very high energy card. Now the Death card can actually be a really good sign. It symbolizes a major transition in your life and often letting go of an old habit, situation or relationship that just doesn't serve you.
So it seems like they definitely did their research with this video, which I really appreciate. I really like how she brought up the fact that it has a lot of big intense energy surrounding it because that is true with it, but it doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. That high energy can be a good thing.
For those of you who have already experienced upheaval, Death can be a good card to see as it implies the end. But also the Death card can suggest a sudden change too. It can predict an imminent breakup. It is very much a card of letting go and adjusting to new behaviors. If you see it reversed, it can be a bad thing. It could be a bad sign that you're resisting change. Now some people, like me, can be pleased when they see the Death card, but others do fear it for the upheaval. For me, I'm thinking like, yes, bring me that change. My card for February was Death.
So I'm really glad that they got someone who definitely knows about tarot. It seems like she's gotten a lot of tarot readings done herself, and so it's definitely good that you have someone who knows what they're talking about when they're explaining these cards instead of doing it from an outsider's perspective who is afraid of these cards.
Alright, next up, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the first of the swords. Get used to them because they are the suit of drama. Coming in at number 9, we have the 9 of Swords.
It's really interesting to me that they put 9 of Swords on this list. I know that it's a high anxiety driven card, and so maybe that's why they're saying that, but to me I always picked it up as what the person's current energy is or what it's going to lead to. To me it's more like an internal struggle, which is a lot easier to fix and prevent versus other cards that represent external things that you kind of just have to navigate through and you can't really control. So I'm really interested to hear what their reasoning is for putting it on the list.
Ugh, ideally you really don't want the 9 of Swords in your reading, especially not part of your future. Just looking at the 9 of Swords on most decks is enough to make anyone feel pretty stressed out. It usually depicts a person sitting with their head in their hands on their bed as if they've just awoken from a terrible nightmare. On my Morgan Greer deck it is bound hands. The card tends to mean anxiety, negativity, worry, fear and helplessness. Now this card can also be a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy too, which is double the bad. Worrying about something bad is almost as bad as something bad happening anyway. The 9 of Swords can be an isolating card that suggests you need some help to deal with everything making you anxious.
So with the 9 of Swords, I do agree that the image on it could look scary and intimidating, but once you know the meaning of the card, it means that you're like overly stressed out, where you need to get help and support from others because keeping it all in is not helping you. And so for them to say that it's going to lead to some paradox because you're stressed about being stressed about something now, I don't really feel like that would happen unless maybe you're reading for yourself and you're already stressed out and anxious, and so you're not interpreting the cards correctly. Because anytime that I read or seen other readers pick pick it up, they don't go out and tell you to worry about something. When they see that card, that's more of a warning to say, hey, don't worry about it, or if you do feel worried or anxious, here are some things you can do to stop that. Like, it's rare that I've ever heard a reader say, okay, keep stressing about this situation. You know, they might say that you are going to stress about it, but they're not going to encourage that behavior. They're just going to tell you to pay attention to it and try and find solutions for it. So I don't know if I would really put it on the list or not.
Coming into number 8, we have the Five of Wands.
So now they're talking about the Five of Wands, which makes sense because that is the conflict card, and I definitely understand why people would be afraid of that.
Now this is a conflict card. Seeing the Five of Wands very much suggests competition and chaos as well as a stalemate. The general depiction is of a group of men locking rods in conflict, but there is no clear winner or loser. Reverse, the card means inner conflict and indecision. Now this is a stressful card for sure, mainly because it seems to suggest a stalemate and no moving forward. The good thing with this card is that it's basically telling you that conflict isn't the resolving answer. It encourages you to give everyone airtime and work together. Nonetheless, seeing this card is a clear sign of deep frustration.
So I really agree with what she said about the Five of Wands. It definitely is such a frustrating card, and it's just a frustrating energy surrounding it.
Coming into number 7, we have the Five of Pentacles.
So again, we have another 5, and I have a feeling that there is going to be a lot of 5s in this list, just because 5 in the tarot represents kind of the problem, the issue, and then from there the rest of the cards start to pick up more and kind of solve it. And so if you look at the minor arcana, typically like 1 to 4, it's like going this way, then it dips, and then it goes back up again. And it's kind of like the Fool's Journey, how it's up and down, just like in life, how you're going to be up and you're going to be down sometimes. And so tarot really reflects that, and the 5s is kind of one of those down moments.
Oh dear. The Five of Pentacles is very much the card of hard times. You don't want to see it. Nobody wants to fall on hard times, but this card is likely suggesting that you will, although the good news is that it's a minor arcana, which suggests it's only temporary. Still, seeing this card could indicate the loss of a job or loss of financial security. The imagery on the card is usually two impoverished people clinging onto one another in sadness, and one of them is injured. Now some people interpret this card as meaning a short sickness. The Five of Pentacles is a card of lacking. You just don't feel like you have enough. Reversed, it can mean, on the upside, an end to hard times, or it can mean spiritual poverty or feeling dissatisfaction. It can also mean a negative and empty cycle.
So I do agree with what she said about the Five of Pentacles, how it can mean some sort of hardship, and how sometimes it can mean sickness, but not all the time. But I also found that it can mean allowing yourself to be vulnerable.
Coming into number 6, we have the Ten of Wands.
It's super interesting that they put the Ten of Wands. To me, that's not really a card that I feel like many people would be afraid of. So I'm really interested to see what their reasoning is for that.
This is the card of burden. The Ten of Wands is the card of toil and being overwhelmed. Again, it is only temporary, but not a card of happy times. It's exhaustion, feeling burnt out, being on the brink. These are all the emotions associated with the Ten of Wands. In the reverse position, it can suggest emotional trauma or carrying a dark secret. In most decks, it's depicted by a person carrying a pile of wands. It's a big burden, and also they're facing away from us, meaning that this is a weight that they're carrying alone. Again, it's almost over, so it's not great, but at least it's not forever.
So I do get what she was saying with the Ten of Wands, but to me I also see it as something that you're holding on to that's causing you issues and hardships, and you need to let go of it and ask for help from others and not do everything yourself. Because to me it seems like this person's just carrying the big pile of sticks by themselves when they know it's too much for them, but they're taking on this task and saying they can do it themselves because their ego isn't letting them get help from others. And so with this card, like if I got it in a reading, it would say, okay, what are you holding on to that you need to let go of? What problems are you having that you need help to solve? And so that's kind of where like I would see it. And so I don't really feel like it's a card that many people would be afraid of getting in a reading. It might just be a little bit of an inconvenience in the reading, like, okay, great, now it's something I gotta figure out a solution to.
Okay, next up we have a scary card to see, but not necessarily all as it seems. Coming into number 5, we have the Devil.
The Devil and the Death card, always the top two cards everyone's afraid of with tarot. Even if they don't know anything about tarot, they know those two cards and they know that they're afraid of them. So it makes a lot of sense why it's on this list. I honestly thought Death was going to be higher up on this list, but it totally makes sense why the Devil is here, because that is one of the most intimidating cards.
I get it. You see the Devil and it is worrying. It's scary. It's my overruling card of the year, apparently. Okay, to look at, the Devil is a worry. He looks pretty evil. He's sitting on a throne. He has horns, claws, wings. He has a man man and a woman chained up beneath him. Now the card can be worrying to religious people, but really, it's a warning card. The Devil card can represent bad habits, bad relationships, addictions, negative thought patterns. The Devil is a card of short-term pleasure but long-term suffering. It can also suggest unhealthy attachment, obsession. The good thing about seeing the Devil card is that it is a reminder that you have control. It's a reminder to address negative behavior or address indulgence. It is a big energy card, but once again, perhaps a bit of a warning sign.
So I like the fact that she said the Devil card is a warning, because that's so true. When you get the Devil card, it's saying, hey, pay attention to these bad habits, or this is a bad habit, or this is a red flag, hey, don't do this. But it's not saying that you can't fix it. It's saying you can fix it, you can get control of your life, but you need to address these and look at them and call them for what they are. Don't sugarcoat it and say it's not a problem when it is.
Okay, next up, in ancient readings, this card would be used to foreshadow a death at number 4. We have the Knight of Swords.
So I find it really odd that they have the Knight of Swords listed here as a scary card.
Now in most modern interpretations, the upright Knight of Swords can be all about pursuing goals, but a warning not to be too rash. In older readings and predictive readings, the card represented war, ruin, and the approach of death. Now there's a lot of mirror symbolism in the Rider-Waite deck between the Death card and the Knight of Swords cards. In a love reading, the Knight of Swords cards can represent violence, anger, and conflict when it really isn't what you want.
Okay, so now after hearing their explanations for the Knight of Swords, I get why it is scary, and I definitely do see the similarities between it and the Death card.
Get ready for some heartbreak. At number 3, we have the Three of Swords.
So the Three of Swords makes a lot of sense to be on this list. It's kind of like the breakup card of the tarot, and it doesn't mean that all the time, but a lot of times it does, and that's definitely the connotation with it. And so especially if you're doing some sort of love reading, I can understand why people would be afraid of getting this card.
Oh, this is not a great looking card. It basically says it all. Just looking at it is very, very ominous. The classic depiction is 3 swords through a heart, but it can also be 3 ominous looking figures stabbing a heart or a flower. The card traditionally means grief, sorrow, heartbreak, hurt, emotional and physical wounds. This isn't a good card, you don't want to see it. The only silver lining is the clouds in the background, a suggestion that the emotional storm won't last, and a reminder that every cloud does indeed have a silver lining. Storms pass, you'll move on. This card is a signifier that you or someone very close to you will get hurt very, very soon. Now the card is all about emotional release and a reminder not to get lost in the storm and focus on the bigger picture. Worryingly, the card can also represent a period of painful mourning, so there could be a death. Reverse, the card is warning you not to hurt others and encouraging you to move on. And at number 2, we have the Ten of Swords.
I was waiting for them to put the Ten of Swords on this list. I thought that they were going to skip it when they brought up the Ten of Wands, but no, it's at number 2, and that makes a lot of sense, especially because the typical depiction of the card is someone stabbed in the back and laying on the floor dead. So it makes a lot of sense why people would be very fearful and afraid of this card.
So this one is one of the most visually stressful tarot cards in all of the decks. It tends to show a person being stabbed by 10 different swords and they're either dead on the ground or screaming in pain. So this card means a very painful ending, physical and emotional pain, some very deep wounds, loss, crisis. The card can signify a breakup, a bad ending, being fired, a friend betraying you, nothing good. I say that, but actually tens do signify the completion of a cycle, so it is pain, but it isn't forever. It's a worst case scenario card, but when it's done, it's done. The Ten of Swords invites you to accept it. It's kind of worse to see it reversed, as it suggests that you're trying to avoid inevitable pain, maybe trying to avoid a breakup. Reversed, it's kind of like inviting you to rip the band-aid off.
So that's really interesting about how she's saying it's almost worse when you see it reversed. To me, when I see it reversed, it means that you are healing from this pain, that you are moving on from this pain. So that's really interesting how we differ with that. But I definitely agree with what she said about it being number 10, meaning that once it's done, because 10 is reduced to a 1 and 1 is new beginnings. So anytime you see number 10 in the tarot, think of it as a 1 where it's an ending leading to a new beginning.
Okay, finally at number 1, we have the scariest card of them all. We have the Tower. Major Arcana, major energy. The Tower is the biggie. So pictorially, lightning is striking the tower. It's on fire. Kings and queens are losing their crowns and falling very hard into choppy tides. That tower is no longer safe. It is coming down. It is getting destroyed. So yeah, tower, stressful. When this card appears, expect the unexpected. Literally. It is a card of chaos, destruction, change, and upheaval. Traditionally, it can mean a divorce, death of someone close to you, an event that shakes you to your very core, something affecting who you are, total destruction. It can even depict an actual natural disaster like an earthquake, or sometimes it might even foreshadow an accident. This card suggests that everything you believe to be true or trusted could be turned on its head. With an upright tower, change is external, but with a reverse tower, change is internal and reflects your calling into question. It basically invites you to question your beliefs in a very, very serious way. It can also be a sign that you're resisting change and necessary destruction is nigh. So unlike the reverse Ten of Swords, this isn't a rip the band-aid off sign, this is a take a wrecking ball to it sign. When you see the tower, oof, honey, baby, boy, brace yourself. The good thing though is that when the worst happens, when that tower comes down, you can rebuild afresh, if that's any comfort.
Yeah, so tower energy is very intense. I totally agree with what she's saying with that. It's something where there is a lot of hardships and it teaches you a lot of lessons, which is not always easy. So I definitely understand why people are afraid of it in tarot. I've even had it in readings and been afraid of the meaning and the message just because it means that there is going to be a lot of uncomfortable times ahead where it's almost like even if you try everything you can to prevent something from happening and try and avoid it, it's going to happen no matter what. It's a very forceful energy where whatever it wants, whatever it's taking down with it is coming down and it's going to happen whether you're ready or not for it. It's definitely an energy that does not wait for anyone. So when you get it, it means that there's going to be very intense changes and almost destruction. Even if that's a good destruction, in the moment when things are being destroyed, it's not going to feel that way. So that's why it's so fearful, because it's very unexpected and typically unwanted. So yes, definitely with the Tower card, I agree so much with what she said. The only thing I would add is that when it's reversed, sometimes it can mean a spiritual awakening too. But yes, definitely it's a tough one when you get that card. So with the video, I actually really liked it. I liked the fact that it was very fair and very balanced. Like I said, there's certain cards that I wouldn't really had on the list. I probably would have taken off the Ten of Wands and the Ten of Swords and put other cards in to replace them, but all in all, I think it was a really good video, and especially for people who don't know much about tarot, I think it's really good and would help them understand how there's good and bad things with the meanings and that it's not all just black and white. And definitely I feel like there's no need to be like super afraid of a card besides maybe the Tower, just because that is so uncomfortable, but there's nothing that's really bad, and even with the Tower you get to rebuild once it's done. So even though it's really intense and happens unexpectedly, it's not forever either, and that's kind of the thing to remember with all the tarot cards and all the readings, that whatever it picks up, you're not going to be stuck like that forever, and it's not always set in stone. Like, you can always change things, you can always heal faster than you thought, and so there's so many ways to look at tarot, because tarot is just guidance. Yes, it like predicts the future on your current path, but if you decide you want to change the path, you always can. And that's kind of what people sometimes forget with tarot, it's that it's not a complete blueprint for your life. It's more so like a GPS where it shows you the way that you can go, but you don't have to go that way. If you decide to go a different way, you can reroute. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any other suggestions for videos I should film, let me know in the YouTube comments down below. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and share with others. I post 4 videos a week and I would love to have you guys a part of this family, so hit subscribe if you haven't already. Also turn on that bell notification so you see when I post my next video, and I'll see you all in my next video. Have a good one. Bye.